What's good? What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Urban Platform Speaks. Make sure to like and subscribe as you come into the channel, check out the content. And with that being said, I want to speak on this situation that's going on with Pat McAfee and Stephen A. and give my perspective of what I think is really going on here. Pat McAfee had recently come out and said that Stephen A. Smith and is and some of the African Americans with ESPN are jealous of him and don't really want him to have access to NBA commentators that work for ESPN. And so that's the narrative that's going around, right? And I think it's bigger than that. I think because if it was just about that, and it wasn't about some other things that's going on at ESPN, I think that could be worked out in house. But I think it's bigger than that. I think Stephen A. Smith is being used because not only is Stephen A. Smith jealous of Pat McAfee because of the deal that he has, the partnership that he has with ESPN, but ESPN is threatened by Pat McAfee. And so what I mean by that is Pat McAfee is not an employee. Pat McAfee is a partner. And so with Pat McAfee being a partner, ever since Pat McAfee has when he came to ESPN, he already had a base. He had a large base and a large following. And so since he has joined ESPN, Pat McAfee has grown. His base and his following has grown. But ESPN is not growing. They're not benefiting from the relationship with Pat McAfee as much as Pat McAfee is benefiting from them. So Pat McAfee is growing. So when you're as a partner, if he's growing and ESPN is not growing, then that's a problem for ESPN. So what ESPN is doing is they're using Stephen A. Smith. And Stephen A. Smith may think that, it's about money. The contract that Pat McAfee got, Pat McAfee is getting paid more than Stephen A. Smith, but Pat McAfee is a partner. And so Stephen A. Smith is looking at it from the point of view that Pat McAfee is making more money than him, but Pat McAfee is not, he's not even an employee of this network. And Stephen A. Smith is an employee. And Stephen A. Smith, no matter how much money they pay Stephen A. Smith, he still won't be in the position that Pat McAfee in, like I said, because one is a partner, one is an employee. And so that they allow Stephen A. Smith to kind of go at Pat McAfee over the money issue. So, while they try to figure out how they can best, how they can either benefit from Pat McAfee's base or how they can shake his base down, because the new threat to ESPN is social media and all these different platforms. People are turning, they watching more sports and they watching a lot more stuff on social media than they are ESPN. And so Pat McAfee is a threat to ESPN. Pat McAfee not even really concerned about Stephen A. Smith, the money thing, because Pat McAfee, by him being his own, his own boss, he writes his own check. Stephen A. has to go to somebody else for a raise. Pat McAfee is growing his platform, his base. And so they're not even in the same, even though Stephen A. Smith, all right, so if ESPN decided, all right, we're gonna pay you $1 more, or say $1 million more, we're gonna pay you X amount of dollars more than Pat McAfee. Stephen A. Smith still don't have the type of leverage and pull that Pat McAfee have, because Pat McAfee is independent. He has more independence than Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith is crying about a paycheck and worrying about trying to make more money, when this guy is worrying about trying to grow his base and trying to be more independent. Pat McAfee is in a position where as though he could have his own network. Stephen A. is just worrying about getting paid from somebody, and so it's just totally different. He's worrying about getting a contract when Pat McAfee is working towards having his own network. And so if Stephen A. Smith think that, you know, he's bigger or better, or he's doing more than what Pat McAfee's doing, he's sadly mistaken. He's just being used by ESPN, to make it look like it's a racial issue, as far as like, all right, Pat McAfee got paid more. Stephen A. Smith said, I'm the big man on campus. I should get paid more than Pat McAfee because I've been here longer. When Pat McAfee, they made that deal with Pat McAfee. ESPN made that deal with Pat McAfee, thinking that they can capitalize on the base that Pat McAfee had. And so what really happened, like I said, what's happening is Pat McAfee is continually growing, while people are really, they're not really going to ESPN for their sports like they used to, because there's so many different social media outlets, and so that's why Stephen A. Smith even tried to start, that's why he started up his own podcast, so that would give him more what I would say, like more leverage and more freedom. But what Stephen A. Smith did, his podcast is still connected to ESPN, and his popularity is connected to ESPN because ESPN has built him for like over the last like 20 years. And so there's certain things he can't say or can't do on his podcast, or his contract will be, will be ended. Whereas though Pat McAfee is not in that boat. Now, Pat McAfee may have some restrictions, but ESPN, Pat McAfee don't need ESPN as much as Stephen A. Smith did. And that's the thing that ESPN don't like about their relationship with Pat McAfee is Pat McAfee is basically, like they had an issue about him wearing tank tops and stuff on the show. If you're an employee and somebody tell you you can't wear tank tops, then you can't. But if you're a partner and somebody say don't wear tank tops, you basically, you can thumb your nose at them, and Steve, that's why Stephen A. Smith was kind of envious and jealous of him, because Pat McAfee he put himself in a position where as though he can do what he want to do on it, basically almost do what he wanted to do on that network, when Stephen A. Smith didn't have that really kind of cachet. He didn't have that kind of leverage and stuff like that. And so now, like I said, the ESPN is using Stephen A. Smith, and they're trying to make it seem like I said, like it's a racial issue. The black guys or the black commentators don't want to cooperate with Pat McAfee, and that's not it. I think, because look at it this way: if Pat McAfee was helping ESPN to grow their platform, their network, and Stephen A. Smith was in the way of that, the powers that be at ESPN would tell Stephen A. Smith, get out the way, allow him to have whatever he need to grow this platform. So, they wouldn't, no way Stephen A. Smith would be able to mess that money up for ESPN. But because Pat McAfee has the leverage he has the pull he has, he got the base that he have, they want Stephen A. Smith to do their dirty work and go at him and try until they figure out a way where they can leverage Pat McAfee's base. And that's what it's all about. It's all about control. Stephen A. Smith, I don't know if Stephen A. Smith realized this or recognized this, but it's all about, it's, you got two other people fighting, and then Stephen A. Smith is just really just doing the bidding for ESPN. Say, for instance, no matter who wins, Stephen A. Smith is not going to come out on top. So like if ESPN win, Stephen A. Smith will still be an employee of he'll still be an employee. He won't be, he'll never be a partner with ESPN. If Pat McAfee win and he goes on to establish a network, an independent network outside of ESPN, then Stephen A. Smith still lose. So Stephen A. Smith is in a, he's being used. He's in a position where he's in a, he has nothing to gain either way from Pat McAfee or ESPN, except for a job. He'll always have a job, but other than that, yeah, he's being used. And I don't even know that Stephen A. Smith really recognized that. But let me know what you think. Let me know if you agree. Do you see or do you think that Stephen A. Smith is being used by the network? And it's not really a racial issue. It's about power and control between Pat McAfee and ESPN, and Stephen A. Smith is just I don't know if you call I don't know what you would call him, but he's just been used. With that being said, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to leave a comment, and I will check you out in the next video. Peace.